I used to believe I was born defective. Not in a physical way but in some deeper, unseen way. Like something inside me was fundamentally broken. Why else would a mother treat her child like a burden? From as far back as I can remember, I was the shadow in every family photo. Not because I was shy or withdrawn, but because no one ever called me to stand beside them. If my life had a recurring theme, it was isolation, loneliness so loud it echoed in rooms full of people who called themselves my family. My name is Ava. And for 23 years I believed the only place I belonged was in the background. I was raised in a small town in Oregon, in a house that always smelled like cinnamon candles and disappointment. My mother, Elena, was the kind of woman who could charm a room full of strangers, then come home and make you feel like you were suffocating in silence. She married my stepfather, Mark, when I was 3. I don't remember much before that. I don't even know if I was allowed to. Mark had 2 kids from a previous marriage, Logan and Riley, and they were golden in my mother's eyes. She used to say, "They're just easier to raise." I always wondered what that meant. Was I hard to raise because I cried at night? Because I asked too many questions? Or because I looked like someone she wanted to forget? Logan was 2 years older than me, a born charmer like his father. Riley was my age but light years ahead in how she moved, how she spoke, how she carried herself. She was everything I wasn't: confident, adored, protected. Me. I was the live-in housekeeper who happened to share their last name. My chores started before school. Wake up at 5:30. Make breakfast. Pack their lunches. Feed the dog. Sweep the kitchen. And after school it continued: laundry, dinner, cleanup, then homework if I had time. I wasn't allowed to eat until everyone else had finished. That's just how it was. If I ever dared to speak up, my mother would give me that cold stare and say, "Don't act like you're some victim, Ava. This is real life. Not some fairy tale." One night I got an award at school. First place in the regional writing contest. I was so proud. I ran home with the certificate clutched in my hand, practically bursting through the front door. My mom didn't look up from folding laundry. "Did you pick up the milk like I asked?" That was it. No smile. "No, I'm proud of you." Just another missed chance at being seen. The thing is, I didn't even want much. I wasn't asking for gifts or praise or to be treated like royalty. I just wanted to matter. I just wanted to be someone worth loving. But in that house, love was currency and I was broke. By the time I hit 16, I'd stopped expecting anything. I got a part-time job at a diner downtown just to have a place to breathe. I worked evenings, weekends, holidays. I saved every dime not because I had a plan but because saving money felt like saving myself. Like maybe, just maybe, it would buy me a life outside of those walls. My teachers at school used to ask if everything was okay at home. I'd smile and nod. Of course everything's fine. What was I supposed to say? My mom resents me for reasons I don't understand, my stepdad doesn't know I exist unless something's broken, and my siblings treat me like I'm contagious? That's not the kind of thing you blurt out in algebra class. So I held it together. I studied hard, got decent grades, and managed to get into a community college on scholarship. My mother didn't even come to my high school graduation. Said she was too tired from work. But I saw the pictures on Facebook. She was at Riley's dance recital with matching t-shirts and balloons. I should have been used to it by then. I wasn't. You'd think at some point the heart would build scar tissue. That it would stop hurting when you're excluded, overlooked, erased. But it doesn't. Not really. It just grows quieter. Numb. Even in college I didn't escape the feeling that I was less than. I lived in a cramped apartment with 3 other girls, took classes during the day, worked at night, and still sent money home whenever mom asked. She always had a reason: the car needs fixing, Logan's school fees, groceries are tight this month. I never said no. Part of me thought maybe if I just gave enough she'd finally see me. But love doesn't work like that. By the time I turned 23 I was exhausted, in every sense of the word. Emotionally, financially, spiritually. I had nothing to show for the years I'd spent bending over backward for people who wouldn't even bend their necks to look at me. I wasn't angry. Not yet. Just tired. Worn thin by a lifetime of being the girl nobody chose. Then, something strange happened. It started with a box. A weathered, taped-up shoebox tucked high in my mother's closet. I found it by accident while searching for an old coat. Inside were faded photographs, letters, lots of letters, and one torn envelope with my name on it in bold, unfamiliar handwriting. That box would change everything. But at that moment, holding it in my shaking hands, I had no idea that the truth inside would burn down everything I thought I knew about who I was. The envelope felt heavier than it should have. Like it carried more than just paper. Like it held answers I didn't even know I was allowed to ask for. My name was written in a way I'd never seen before. Not rushed. Not scribbled like a grocery list. It was deliberate. Careful. Like someone had taken their time. I sat on the edge of my childhood bed, still covered in faded sheets Riley had outgrown and passed down to me, and opened it with trembling fingers. There was one sheet of paper inside. Just one. Folded in thirds. The letter was dated 23 years ago. The handwriting was neat, masculine, and oddly warm. As I read, the words seemed to blur, not from smudges or poor ink, but from the tears welling up in my eyes. Ava. I don't know if you'll ever read this. I've written a dozen letters before and none have reached you. But I keep writing in case one day the door opens. Your mother won't let me see you. I've tried. Lawyers. Courts. Begging. I've tried everything. But she shut me out and disappeared before I could hold you in my arms. I don't even know what hospital you were born in. I only know that somewhere out there, you're living a life that should have been mine to share with you. If you ever find this, know this, I loved your mother once. Deeply. But things fell apart when she found out I couldn't give her the kind of life she wanted fast enough. She left before I had a chance to fix it. I wasn't perfect, Ava. But I wanted to be a father to you. I still do. If there's ever a way for us to meet, I'll be waiting. Always yours, Daniel. My heart stopped. Daniel. I had never heard that name before. Not in relation to my life. My birth certificate listed Mark as my father. That's what my mother told me. That's what I was raised to believe. I was told he was distant because he worked long hours and just wasn't the affectionate type. And I believed it. I had no reason not to. But this letter, this voice that somehow felt more paternal in one page than Mark had ever felt in 2 decades, made my entire world tilt. I read it over and over again, my brain struggling to bridge the gap between what I thought I knew and what I was starting to realize. My mother lied. Not about something small. About everything. I went through the rest of the box. Dozens more letters. Some returned unopened. Some marked, address unknown. There were even photos, blurry, old but unmistakable. Me. As a baby. In the arms of a man I didn't recognize. I stared at one picture in particular. He was smiling so wide, looking down at me like I was his entire universe. I was bundled in a pink blanket. Someone had written on the back, Ava, 1 week old. My angel. My angel. I couldn't breathe. I confronted my mother that night. She was watching a reality show, a glass of wine in her hand, laughing at something on TV. I stood in the doorway, clutching the photo in one hand and the letter in the other. Who is Daniel? I asked, voice shaking. Her eyes flicked to me, then to the photo, then back to her wine. She didn't look surprised. Not even a little. You went through my things, she said calmly. That's not an answer. She sighed. Like I had just asked her to take out the trash. Daniel was a mistake. A phase. It didn't matter. You told me Mark was my father. Well, what did you want me to say? That your real father was some broke dreamer who couldn't even afford to pay rent? That he was beneath me? I married up. I gave you a stable life. Be grateful. Grateful. That word again. The word she always used when she wanted to silence me. You lied to me my entire life. He shrugged. I did what I had to do. You wouldn't understand. You were just a baby. But you kept me from him. He wanted to be in my life. Yeah, and you think your life would have been better living in some trailer with a man who wrote letters instead of sending money? I didn't respond. Because in that moment I knew I wasn't going to get remorse. Or regret. Or even an apology. She didn't think she had done anything wrong. But something inside me had changed. For the first time I wasn't afraid of her. I wasn't desperate for her approval. I was furious and I was ready to find the truth. The next week I used a DNA testing kit I ordered online. I sent it in without telling anyone. I had just enough of Daniel's handwriting and photos to do some research, and I eventually found a company registered under his name. A tech firm based in Seattle. And that's when things got even stranger. Because Daniel Harper wasn't just a man who loved me once. He was now the founder of a billion-dollar software company. A man who had made his way to the top quietly but powerfully. A man who, for the past 20 years, had been trying to find the daughter he never got to raise. I reached out to his assistant, not expecting much. I didn't even know what I was going to say. I sent a short message with my name, my age, and a copy of the letter. 2 days later I got a response. He wanted to meet me. And I was terrified. What if he didn't recognize me? What if he didn't want me after all? What if my mother had been right and he had only written those letters out of guilt? But when I walked into that office, nervous, nauseous, heart-pounding, I saw him. He stood up the moment he saw me. His eyes filled with tears. And then he said it without hesitation, like he had rehearsed it every day for 23 years. By God, you look just like your mother, but better. Ava, is it really you? And in that moment I felt it. For the first time in my life I felt seen. I don't know how I managed to stay standing. Hearing my name spoken like that, like it mattered, like I mattered, shook something loose inside me. Daniel's voice wasn't heavy with guilt or apology. It was full of relief, wonder, maybe even love. And that terrified me more than I can explain. Because I didn't know what to do with that kind of affection. I had spent my entire life preparing for rejection, not acceptance. Not warmth. He walked toward me slowly as if afraid I'd vanish if he moved too fast. When he reached me, he asked, "Can I hug you?" I nodded before I could stop myself, and suddenly I was in his arms, wrapped in something so unfamiliar it made my throat tighten. He smelled like cedar and paper and something faintly sweet like cinnamon. My body tensed at first. Then gradually I sank into him. I let myself believe, just for a second, that I wasn't alone in the world. We sat and talked for hours. He had so many questions, but he was gentle, never pushy. He asked if I was safe, if I had support, if I was okay. He didn't ask me to explain why my mother had kept me from him. He already knew she would have spun the truth to suit her. Daniel told me he had hired private investigators over the years, filed court petitions, and tried every legal angle, but my mother had covered her tracks too well. She changed my last name, moved towns, erased his presence completely. He said he kept writing letters anyway, hoping they'd reach me somehow. That box I found? He never knew if they were delivered. She must have kept them for herself. A twisted form of control, I guess. I didn't cry in that meeting. Not then. But I did later, alone in my apartment that night, sitting on the edge of my bed with all the lights off. Because I realized something. The family I had was never mine. Not truly. But maybe, just maybe, I had another chance. Over the next few months, Daniel and I started to build something that felt real. He invited me to family dinners. Introduced me to his wife, my stepmother Claire, who hugged me like I'd always been part of the family. They had no other children. Daniel had never married until 10 years ago. He told me he never wanted to start a new family until he had closure with me. "You were always the one I was waiting for," he said. I wasn't used to kindness without strings. I kept waiting for the catch. But there wasn't one. He didn't want anything from me. Well, except maybe time. Trust. A chance to get to know the daughter he lost. And slowly I gave him that. We started meeting weekly. He encouraged me to go back to school, offered to help pay for a full degree. He even gave me a job at one of his smaller subsidiaries, not as a charity case but because he believed in me. For the first time in my life I started to believe in me too. Then came the will. Daniel had already updated it years before, long before he ever found me again. I was named as his sole heir. Not because he felt guilty, but because, as he said, "You're my blood. My legacy." He told me about it one afternoon over lunch like he was telling me the weather. I nearly choked on my water. "You're leaving it all to me?" I whispered. He smiled. "Why wouldn't I? You're my daughter." That sentence rewrote every moment of neglect I had ever known. But that's also when the vultures came circling. As somehow, some way word got out. I don't know if it was an overheard conversation or a leaked document, But my mother found out. So did Mark. And Logan. And Riley. First it was subtle. A text from my mother. Hope you're doing well. Let's catch up. Then a phone call. Then a surprise visit. She showed up at my apartment like we were best friends. Smiling, arms open, acting like the past 2 decades of cruelty never happened. I've missed you, she said. I stood in the doorway, unsure whether to laugh or slam the door. You're only here because you found out, I said flatly. Her smile twitched. I don't know what you mean. Don't insult me. She dropped the act faster than I expected. Her voice turned sharp. You think you're better than us now? Just because your real daddy has a little money? I blinked. No. I think I finally know my worth. That's the difference. She stormed off, but it didn't stop there. Logan messaged me asking to reconnect. Riley suddenly wanted to grab coffee. Mark even had the audacity to send me a long email about how he always considered me his own, despite years of treating me like a stranger under his roof. I ignored them all. I wasn't bitter. I just wasn't interested in rewriting history with people who only remembered me when there was something to gain. But they didn't give up. My mother called Daniel directly. Tried to guilt him. Claimed she had raised me alone. That she had protected me from him. That she deserved a stake in the inheritance, for all the years she sacrificed. Daniel didn't say much. He didn't need to. He had seen enough. The moment he met me, he knew what kind of life I had been living. And the moment she opened her mouth, she confirmed everything. That's when I realized something. I didn't have to fight for revenge. I didn't have to scream or argue or prove who I was anymore. Because the truth had already exposed them. And karma, it had already punched its ticket. The climax didn't come in a burst of screaming or some dramatic confrontation in the rain. Oh, life isn't a movie. It came quietly, steadily, like justice slipping through the cracks and settling exactly where it belonged. A few months after my mother tried to guilt Daniel, she showed up again, this time at his office. Security called ahead, giving Daniel the option to have her removed. He sighed and said, "Let her in." I sat in the corner of his office that day working on a project he had given me, something I actually enjoyed, something I was proud of. She walked in like she owned the place, like the walls should bow to her presence. She had on her favorite red lipstick, the one she always wore when she wanted something. I knew that shade well. It meant manipulation was about to follow. "Daniel," she said, smiling like the devil in pearls. He didn't stand. "Elena." Her eyes flitted to me. "Ava," she said coolly. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. I had all the power I needed just by sitting there, unbothered, collected, and for once not shrinking. "I think we got off on the wrong foot," she began. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Did we?" I thought it was quite clear. She laughed like it was some misunderstanding, like she hadn't buried a box of letters, like she hadn't kept a father from his daughter for over 2 decades. "I didn't come here to fight," she said. "I came here to make things right. For Ava's sake." He leaned back in his chair. "You mean for the money's sake?" Her face twitched. "I just think it's important for Ava to remember who raised her." Daniel sat forward, resting his elbows on the desk. "You didn't raise her. You endured her. You used her. Don't insult me by pretending it was anything more." She looked at me then, and for the first time in my life I saw her unravel. That carefully constructed image cracked, and underneath it was just a bitter woman who had lost control of the narrative. She had always been the director of my life, editing, cutting, rewriting history to suit her version of reality. Now she was watching the credits roll, and she wasn't the star. "I sacrificed everything," she snapped. "No," I said quietly. "You sacrificed me." And then I stood. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just said, "I forgive you, but I'll never forget what you did." She left without another word. That was the last time I saw her. Word got around quickly after that. Not just in our town but in surrounding cities. People whispered. Old family friends started piecing things together. Some reached out with hollow apologies, suddenly remembering how different I'd been treated growing up. Logan and Riley weren't immune either. Turns out, when people believe there's money to be inherited, Everyone wants a slice. And when they find out there's nothing for them, they turn on each other like wolves. Their family started to splinter. Mark lost his job after a quiet but scandalous audit exposed years of misuse. Riley's engagement fell apart. Apparently, her fiancé didn't take kindly to her new obsession with trying to get close to me again. And Logan? He tried starting a tech business, using my father's name to get investors. That didn't go well. Daniel's legal team shut it down before it ever launched. Apparently, impersonating a family connection to manipulate investors isn't just morally wrong, it's legally shaky. I kept rising. Not out of spite but out of necessity. I enrolled in school full-time. Daniel insisted on paying for it and I finally let him, because this time it wasn't a handout. It was reparation. It was an investment in the daughter he never stopped loving even when she was invisible. I moved into a townhouse he owned in the city. I had my own office, a new wardrobe, and more importantly, a sense of self I had never known before. But the biggest change wasn't external. It was the way I started to look at myself in the mirror. I was no longer the girl waiting for love from people who only knew how to take. I was no longer chasing validation. I was finally whole. And as for my mother and the family that raised me, I didn't wish them harm. I didn't need to see them suffer. I just needed them to see me shine, and know they had no part in it. Because that's the sweetest revenge. It's funny how healing doesn't come all at once. It arrives in small, almost unnoticeable waves. Like the first time I bought flowers just because they made me happy. Or when I walked past the old corner store near our childhood home and didn't feel like that broken little girl anymore. For the first time in forever I had peace. No more competing for love. No more asking, what did I do wrong? No more waiting for apologies that would never come. I was living my life on my own terms. And it was beautiful. Daniel and I grew closer. We started new traditions. Sunday brunches, hiking on trails he used to dream of taking me to when I was a child. We didn't try to make up for lost time. We simply cherished the time we had now. One afternoon we were sitting on his back porch, sipping tea as the sun dipped below the hills. He looked over at me and said softly, "You know, I used to wonder what kind of woman you'd grow into." I smiled. "Me too. I'm proud of you, Ava. Not just for surviving what you went through, but for refusing to let it define you." I didn't know how much I needed to hear that until the tears spilled down my cheeks. Not tears of sadness, tears of release. Of knowing that finally I was seen, of chosen. And slowly I began building something of my own. I started a non-profit for girls from fractured families, girls who, like me, felt forgotten. We named it The Unseen. It became a place for them to be heard, nurtured, and believed in. People asked why I chose that name. I always told them, because being unseen nearly broke me. But now I help girls realize they've been shining all along, even in the dark. As the months turned into a year, my mother faded from my life like a character written out of a script. Occasionally, I'd hear through distant relatives that she tried reaching out. But I didn't answer. Not out of hatred. Out of growth. I had learned that not everyone deserves access to the healed version of you. Some people only know how to speak to your wounds, not your worth. One day, Riley sent a long message on social media. She apologized for being silent when she should have stood up for me. For letting jealousy blind her. For treating me like a burden when I was just a sister. I didn't respond right away. But when I did, I kept it simple. I forgive you. I hope you learn to love people without conditions. Especially yourself. I meant it. Because part of rising meant I had to release the bitterness. It didn't mean forgetting. It meant choosing peace over pain. Choosing freedom over revenge. Choosing me. It's been 3 years since I walked away from everything that once defined me. My mother's cruelty, Riley's betrayal, the aching emptiness of always being second best. But standing here now in my own home filled with laughter, light, and love, I finally understand what healing really feels like. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's quiet, steady, and sacred. It's the morning I woke up and didn't feel the need to prove anything to anyone. It's the way I look in the mirror and see a woman who fought for herself. It's the joy I feel teaching young girls how to recognize their worth before the world tries to shrink it. People often ask me how I got through it all. How I didn't lose myself when everyone else seemed so determined to erase me. And the truth is, I did lose myself. For a while. But in the wreckage, I found a deeper strength I didn't know I had. The kind of strength that grows when no one claps for you. When no one sees your tears but you wipe them anyway. When you choose not to become like the people who hurt you. That's power. Riley went on to marry Liam, but their fairy tale didn't last. I never took pleasure in watching it fall apart, but it didn't surprise me either. Because anything built on lies and envy eventually crumbles. I heard they separated a year later. And last I checked, she's been posting quotes about forgiveness and new beginnings. I genuinely hope she finds hers. As for my mother, she still lives in that same house, surrounded by the same silence she once used to punish me. The difference now is that I no longer crave her approval. I no longer ache for a love she's incapable of giving. I send her birthday cards, but I've stopped trying to reopen doors that were always bolted shut. I chose to build new ones. With people who open them with grace. With places that feel like belonging. With a future that isn't haunted by the past. Now, I live. Fully. Boldly. Candidly. I travel. I speak to girls who remind me of the girl I once was. I laugh so freely it startles me sometimes. I love someone who cherishes me like I'm a miracle, not a mistake. I took back everything they said I couldn't have. I became the woman they tried to break, but couldn't. So if you're listening to this and you've ever felt like the forgotten one, the outcast, the second choice, hear me when I say this. You are not invisible. You are not replaceable. You are not less. Sometimes the people closest to you can't see your light because they're too blinded by their own shadows. But don't let them dim you. Don't shrink to make them comfortable. Stand tall. Stand firm. Stand proud. Because you are worthy of more. And you don't need to take someone else's place to be great. You just need to take your life back and write a story they'll never be able to erase. Are you ready to do that? Because I did. And it changed everything. Now, I shine. Even if they never say my name. Especially then. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because new episodes drop every single day and you won't want to miss what's coming next. Your support means the world.